Still talking about time, but now we're going to talk about days of the week and months. Now, how many days of the week we have? We have 7. 7 days of the week. And what are those 7 days of the week named after? Well, some of them are very obvious, some are not so obvious because they've been changed over many, many, many years. Sunday is obviously named for the sun. Monday was named for the moon, right? Saturday was named for Saturn. So where did the 7 came from? Actually, the 7 came from back when they called 7 objects planets. To them, planets was a term for anything that moved through the sky. In fact, planet meant wanderer. So what were the planets that the ancients knew about? Remember, they didn't have telescopes. They didn't know about planets like Uranus and Neptune. And so they had 7 planets. Well, the 7 planets, they considered the sun a planet because it moved through the sky. The moon was a planet because it moved through the sky. Then they had Mercury, Venus. Earth was not considered a planet because Earth wasn't moving. It's what we lived on. Everything was moving around it. So you went to Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So we have 7, and these became the days of the week. Sun was Sunday, moon was Monday, Mercury is actually Wednesday. Yeah, how did Wednesday become Mercury? Well, this got translated through many different iterations and comes from, it actually ended up from an Old English word, and that's how we ended up with Wednesday. Venus is Friday. Thursday is Jupiter, and so on. So the planets, the original planets, gave their names to the 7 days of the week. Now, back when they switched to the metric system, or when the metric system was proposed, they had proposed switching from the 7-day week, because even back then they had 7 days of the week. They wanted to go to everything base 10, and so they wanted a 10-day work week. And they wanted only 10 hours in a day. Each hour had 100 minutes, and each minute had 100 seconds. So get rid of the base 60 system. Just like the metric system, which everything's based on powers of 10. It made sense scientifically, but obviously it never caught on because we're still not doing that today. And as far as I know, nobody is trying to change to a metric time-based system. Let's talk about our calendar. Our calendar has months and days, right? 12 months. Why 12 months? Well, originally a month came from moon. And the moon takes 29.5 days to go from full moon to full moon. So if you're measuring it by its phases, it takes 29.5 days, which is about a month, 30 days. Yeah? So that's why a month was supposed to have 30 days. But there were some challenges with that. First of all, 30 does not go into 365, because there's 365 days in a year, right? Actually, there's 365.25 days. There's that extra quarter day, which becomes significant. And if you try to divide this, it doesn't work. If you divide 30 by 365, you get 360, you have 5 extra days. So what they did is, well, what are we going to do with those 5 extra days? Well, let's just add them to certain months, and so some months ended up getting 31 days, and some got 30 days. But originally, our calendar didn't even have 12 months. If you look at October, what does oct mean? It means 8. October was the 8th month. And December, remember dec for decimal system, was 10th month. But now it's the 12th month. You're saying, oh, they started at a different time. They didn't start at a different time. Our New Year starts in January the same way it did all the way back with the Romans. It hasn't changed. So why were these 8 months and these 10 months? This month 10 is now 12. Well, they used to use originally, they had a calendar based on a 10-month year. The problem with that is that every 10 months you start over again, but then it wouldn't synchronize to the seasons. And so some months that were in the summer would become in the winter, and it was hard to figure out like when you're going to plant crops and all that. So back in Julius Caesar's time, actually after Julius Caesar, they created what they call the Julian calendar, named after Julius Caesar. And they did this by calculations from an astronomer that figured out exactly how long a day was. And that's when they figured out it was 365.25 days. And so they realized, well, we need a calendar that accounts for these extra months. We need it to be 12 months long. And so what they did was, they added 2 months. And what months did they add? They added July and August for Julius and Augustus Caesar, because they were emperors. And then they said, oh, July and August, these are named after Caesars or emperors, so they need to have 31 days. So July has 31 days, so does August. So normally during the year we rotate. Like October has 31, November has 30, December has 31, and so so every other month has 31 days. But in the summer, July and August both have 31 days. Well, then they had too many days, so you had to figure out, well, where are we going to take days from? And so where they take days from? Well, they took days from February, because February was in the winter, it was cold. If we take days from that and put them in the summer, we'll have more summer days. Obviously, it has nothing to do with the weather. But that's how February ended up with 28 days, and both July and August ended up with 31 days. And they realized that you had to add an extra day every 4 years when the Julian calendar was created. So they started creating leap years. So every 4 years they add an extra day. We'd add this February 29th. However, even that is not right, because it's actually 365.24 or something is not quite 0.25. It just rounds up to 0.25. It doesn't make a difference for 4 years, but over 400 years, you start to get off. So there was a Pope, Gregory, and he said, oh, I want to calculate exactly when Jesus died. That's what the Pope wanted to do. And this was in the 1500s, early 1600s, late 1500s, early 1600 region. And by then he realized the calendar was off. And so he commissioned people to go figure out what day actually occurred and what year was the right one. And he created essentially the calendar that we're using today. And they realized by this point, because of more astronomers, that the year was not 365.25, it was 365.24 something. And every 400 years, you had to not add a day when you needed to add a day. Okay? And so what happens is, every 400 years, you don't have a leap year. Which corrects for this. So, the year 2000 is divisible by 400. And since 2000 is divisible by 400, it was supposed to be a leap year, but it was not a leap year. Now the next one's not going to be till 2400. We're going to have leap years every 4 years up until that point. So we had a leap year this year, 2020. Alright, so that's why we have it, and we're currently in what we call the Gregorian calendar. Now when they switched from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, every country, back then, this was in Europe, didn't do it at the same time. So there were years, there were many, many years when the calendars were completely mixed up and whatever country you're in was in a different country. And they realized by the time Pope Gregory did this that the calendars had been come off by about 10 days. And so one year in Italy, they went from October 4th, the next day was October 14th. They just skipped 10 days, which caused a whole bunch of problems because people like landlords that charged you a whole rent, but you got ripped off 10 days. You had to pay for the whole month even though you didn't get 10 days left. And if your birthday was in there, you missed your birthday that year. So it caused contention for a while. And then slowly other countries started doing it. Eventually, they all ended up on the Gregorian calendar. Nowadays, all the world uses the Gregorian calendar. Because we do so much international business, everybody has to agree on what days things come and go, airplanes and all kinds of things. Even the Asian countries that had nothing to do with this still use the Gregorian calendar nowadays. Now the Chinese have their own calendar, the Japanese, Korean, all they have their own calendar, but they still use the Gregorian calendar. In fact, the whole world uses the Gregorian calendar. All right, let's talk about the international date line. Well, we have to decide for the whole Earth when a new day begins. And so a new day always begins at midnight wherever you are on the Earth. It's part of the way the calendar works. But they also realize you have to have, if you're going to count, if you're spinning a ball and you want to count how many times it spins, you have to make a mark on it. And that mark, when it spins around, you just count how many times it goes around. You have to have somewhere where you decide a new day begins. And they decided that if over here is the prime meridian, so this is 0 degrees longitude, the best place to have it